Hello, I'm back and I'm on for this week's edition of MMA News. So what we are going to be going over is the UFC 150 results, and then we're going to preview Strikeforce rousey versus Kaufman. So, jumping into things, I will be going over the main card. You had Max Holloway versus Justin Lawrence in the first fight. It was a featherweight fight, and both of them went at it, and they definitely delivered. And you got Holloway pulling off the TKO in the waning seconds of the second round. And that's how that fight went. Then you had veteran Yushin Okami, who faced late replacement Buddy Roberts, Roberts put up a pretty good fight for a replacement. Okami was supposed to fight, I think, I'm not even going to try and, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. So, but yeah, Okami won. It was once again a good fight. Buddy Roberts put up a pretty good fight. So, then you had Jake Shields making his UFC middleweight debut against Ed Herman. Now Shields has fought at middleweight before. He was the Strikeforce middleweight champ. He he got imported from Elite XC and was after a catchweight fight with Robbie Lawler, he got given a middleweight title shot against Jason Miller, and he won. And then he went against Dan Henderson, and and I believe that was it. That's when Strikeforce was still under Silicon Valley Entertainment, and there was a contract dispute, and Shields wanted to go to the UFC, and he left. And a few months after that, ironically enough, is when the UFC bought out Strikeforce. So, a lot of people were saying that, I was reading some things that Shields' fight was boring. Well, he's a wrestler, and unfortunately, despite having a black belt with Cesar Gracie and training with the Diaz brothers and Gilbert Melendez, he clearly doesn't have the submission skills to submit heavier fighters. He had that problem with other middleweights. He's good at submitting I think he needs to work on his overall game. His striking was his Achilles heel against GSP, especially when GSP at one point was like blind in one eye. So he really needs to work on things if he wants to get back into contendership, whether that's at middleweight, whether that's at welterweight. He needs to work on things. I'd imagine that because of the fact that his teammate Nick Diaz is coming out of retirement and he wants to avoid facing off, he's going to try and stay up in that way. The problem with the Cesar Gracie camp is that their two main stars are both in two weight classes, lightweight and welterweight, respectively. Naturally, anyways. We all know that Nate Diaz is going to be fighting for the title against Benson Henderson in the recently announced UFC on Fox 5 card, which will take place sometime into the next quarter. So we know that. But of course, in Strikeforce, you have Gilbert Melendez, who's basically just recently it was announced he's going to be fighting Pat Healy. I think they need to start importing some fighters from UFC if they want to keep Melendez in Strikeforce, because he's being fed, besides the fight with Thompson, he's being fed chicken scratch. Which, he's the type one of those types of fighters that doesn't want to get fed that. He wants to actually be able to fight top contenders, which he's not getting at present. So, anyways, next we had veterans Donald Cerrone and Melvin Guillard facing off. Now, Guillard missed weight by 1.5 pounds, which is once again kind of disappointing. Donald Cerrone, who ultimately won the fight, did in fact make weight, and he ended up knocking out Guillard. It was a pretty good finish. He caught him with a kick, which I think what happened was he threw a left kick, which caught him in Guillard in the right temple, and then Guillard was all staggering all over the place, and then Cerrone finished him with a punch to the left temple, which sent him to the ground, and you finished him off with punches, and that's how that fight went. So, Guillard's been a long-time veteran, and then Donald Cerrone was a champion in the WEC at one point, but since then he's come back. He's trying to establish himself as a contender. Maybe 1 or 2 wins will put him into a spot. There's a lot of lightweight's a rather wide field, so there's quite a few fighters probably looking to establish themselves. But anyways, then you had the rematch, Benson Henderson versus Edgar. And once again, they delivered. Just like in the first fight, they delivered. They went at it pretty well. Though, once again, it was a split decision. Once again, there's controversy. It's like, who won. And there's no denying Edgar did much better. He didn't look as much of a mess. But, he can obviously fight, but obviously it wasn't enough to win him something. This is the second fight in a row that he fought. And, he has a tendency at lightweight to force a rematch and then go in there and, fight close matches, with the exception of the Gray Maynard fight, in which he finally avenged his loss and the draw. But, he's a tactician. And obviously, everyone wishes him the best, whether he chooses to stay at featherweight, whether he chooses to stay at lightweight. Maybe he'd do better against another guy at lightweight, if depending on whether Nate Diaz. Personally, I don't. Nate Diaz is quite literally a thug. He and Nick have that kind of an attitude about them. They just go in, especially when they start they start waving their hands, putting them down, chin out. It's that kind of attitude is they're thugs. There's no other way of putting it. So yeah. There's been talk, Dana White specifically said Frankie Edgar would not get a title shot right off the bat. If he decided to drop to featherweight, he'd have to fight 1 or 2 fights. That's just how things roll out. We'll see how things unfold. So, that was this last weekend. So now this coming weekend is the Strikeforce rousey versus Kaufman card. Now, we have Ovens St. Prix versus TJ Cook. Prix is a good fighter. He's been out there for a little bit. This is light heavyweight. Just because of the fact that I haven't seen him fight too much, I have no idea who TJ Cook is. I really can't say anything. This is the main card. I can't say anything. I haven't seen these guys fight that much. Okay. So, Lumumba Sayers and Anthony Smith. Once again, just I haven't seen these guys fight enough, so I don't really know what to say. Turek Safadine and Roger Bowling. These guys, I do have a little bit to say. I think Safadine will win because I've seen him fight before. He's pretty good. But once again, I haven't seen enough of the guys fighting. So I think Safadine's going to win. He usually looks good in most of his fights. Then you have Ronaldo Souza versus Derek Brunson. I have no idea who Brunson is. I know who Souza is. This is obviously the case of a veteran versus a rising star. Maybe we might see something, but otherwise I think this is Souza getting set up maybe for a title shot. Maybe, maybe not. You know, I mean, Tim Kennedy, no, not Tim Kennedy. Luke Rockhold just defended his title against Tim Kennedy, so, you know, we'll see how the title picture rolls out. Then we have the main event. We have Ronda Rousey versus Sarah Kaufman. Rousey, obviously, she's been, you know, bad-mouthing. A friend of mine knows her as the armbar girl. You know, she just goes out there and she delivers. She goes out there and submits everybody. And in the last fight, she popped Miesha Tate's arm out. You know, I don't know if you saw that fight. It's like you literally see it go from 45 degrees to 90, and then you start to see it go bend the way it's not supposed to. And why how Tate was not able, how it's not necessary to get surgery, I will never know. But, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, well, okay. So, you know, it's Ronda, she's on a roll, she's, you know, rather big, she's probably the biggest women's MMA star since Gina Carano. Though Gina Carano, I think, probably still resounds on the high popularity, even though Ronda just recently appeared in the body issue of the ESPN magazine, which I don't think Gina ever did. The Cyborg did, and speaking of which, there's all that chat, the smack talk between her and Cyborg. And you know, she fought Rousey fought at 45. You know, I could possibly see when Cyborg comes back, maybe setting up a match. I do not think Cyborg should even try to make 35, because she has not made 35. She probably will never make 35. That woman's a freaking beast. There's no way she's gonna make one on 35. You know, she's saying 140, but the reality is her and Gina had problems making that weight. I'm not even sure they had problems making that weight. So don't put her there. I really don't think they should, you know, put her there. Just bump it up to 140, 145. Have them fight for the title. If Cyborg wins it, great. If not, you know, Rousey was fighting up a weight class. But anyways, so that's and the notable fight on the undercard is going to be Miesha Tate versus Julie Kinsey. I don't think it really deserves on the undercard, considering the fights that are on the main card. But that's going to determine the next contendership for Rousey's belt. But you should also take into consideration the Invicta Fighting Championship title contendership thing. You know, in time, I think there'll be an issue, especially with Sarah McMahon. But anyways, so that's it this week. I will be back next week.